Hi, today we're going to be looking at traditional food. First, we're going to look at foods that are considered traditional and we still eat to this day. And we'll be looking at foods that were eaten in the past but are either no longer available, have fallen from use, or it's just not an option anymore. So when we're looking at foods that we eat today, we think about things like moose, caribou, rabbits, ducks, geese, fish like walleye and pike. Now, the main difference from foods today versus back then is that today we typically just eat the meat from these animals. Whereas back in the day, people would eat the entire animal, the liver, kidneys, heart, intestines, right down to the bone, in the bone marrow. Now, this was done because these are the parts of the animals that hold vital nutrients. During the harsh environment of the winter, vitamins and minerals aren't readily available. So they had to eat what was available to them, and animals were typically what was available all year round. Now, there was also vegetables and berries available back then that are still available today and still eaten quite regularly. Blueberries, for instance. These are excellent sources of antioxidants, vitamins, and nutrients, and are still to this day eaten in our communities. Now, we also have things like cranberries and cloudberries and raspberries, but these aren't typically as available as the blueberry, and they're not typically as eaten as much. In regards to other forms of vegetables, because of our environment, we don't have many types available nowadays due to things such as changing climate. So we're not eating traditional vegetables like they would have back in the day. Now, having touched on this, there are still many types of vegetables and foods that were eaten back then but aren't anymore, or they're not eaten in any high quantity. For instance, beavers. These are something that are very rich in nutrients, in protein and iron, but typically aren't eaten in the same amounts as they used to be. There are also vegetables that used to be foraged for, but not so much anymore, mainly because there are other more readily available options. So, for instance, we have the things called cattails. So, these are stalks that have a brown top and go down and are usually found in marshy, wet areas. Cattails are an exceptional source of vitamins and nutrients. The bottom root, as well as the stalk just above the root, were eaten readily throughout the north. The root of a cattail actually contains 12 times more vitamin C than an orange. So they're really good for you, but it's just not practical for us to eat anymore because we can go to the store and we can buy all the oranges we want. We don't have to go out and harvest a basket full of roots, right? There are also other things that were eaten but aren't anymore, mainly because they're extinct or they're extinct from our area. Elk, for instance. Elk used to roam wild and free throughout the north. Nowadays, because of hunting and because of climate change, we see that they're not in any large numbers or huntable numbers in northern Ontario. So eating them has kind of fallen by the wayside. There are also other things that aren't eaten because they just simply don't taste good. Moss, lichen, so these are the things that you see when you're stepping through the forest or you see draping from tree branches. They're not eaten anymore because they don't taste good. They're packed with vitamins and nutrients, but it's just not worth our while to go get, especially when things like spinach and lettuce taste so much better. Now, having said all this, there are a number of foods, traditional foods, that were eaten in the past that aren't eaten anymore. For instance, we've talked about lichen. There's also reindeer moss. This is a green form of moss that is readily available throughout our forests, but it's very bitter. It's good for you, doesn't taste very good. We have wild rice. That's available in many parts of our southern communities, but it's extremely hard to get and making it not worth our while, especially when we can buy other forms of rice in stores. There are options available to us at the stores. We're also looking at things like dandelions. Now, dandelions have many usable parts. You can eat the root, you can eat the leaves, you can even eat the flower on top. All of these are packed with antioxidants, vitamins, nutrients, and carbohydrates to keep you going, to keep your energy up. But the amount that you would have to eat is just not worth it anymore. We also have things like muskrat. Now, this is a rodent that some of you probably have hunted and used to be eaten in high quantities. Not so much anymore, though, because we have other forms of meat that we can go and hunt and eat. There are a number of other things that I'm obviously leaving out. I could sit here and rhyme them all day. But things like pine needles, things that would be turned into tea. So many traditional foods have fallen by the wayside for one reason or another. And I quite frankly encourage you to go out and try picking some pine needles, boil them into a tea. Try picking up some dandelions, take the leaves and eat them. They're good for you, and it's a good way for you to know what's edible in and around your community.